354, 355, 356, 357, and 358. Hello everybody and welcome to Shenaniderp. Now before I go on into my normal jump cut into the workshop, I want to explain why I ended at 358 here instead of, well, 8 over that way or something like that. Because there was a slight glitch in my calculations. Back when I first made this, I said that these sections, like that set of seats had 25, and that set of seats had 25, and that set of seats had 25. I was wrong. For each row of this section, there are 25 seats. But for each row of this section, there are 26. So my numbers had been off for every time that I did this. But I've recounted everything. And now we are accurate. This is actually the 358th head placed. Whew. Okay, so that means I'm going to start filling up the center section as well because, well, it can't get any more goofy than it already is. Alright, on with the show. So I spent the last several hours trying to figure out why I have a frames per second issue. I don't know if you can see it. Well, I can't even see it right now. I can only see it when I'm moving really, really fast. And at that point in YouTube, you probably wouldn't even notice it. But I'm actually right now running at 27 frames per second. Okay, that is, well, okay, that just dropped to 23 frames per second. But that is actually really, really bad for my computer, considering I can run out in the middle of nowhere and run at about 120 frames per second. So I spent the last couple hours trying to figure out why my FPS is so freaking low. And in doing that, I tore out the Great Machine. And I mean completely tore it out. It was all gone. Even these pipes were gone. Just everything was gone. I even tore out the valves for the Zycraft tanks. Oh, those are Zycraft stuff as well. Let's rip those out. Yeah, these... Whoa, I fell down the hole. These Zycraft tanks, Space put up the other day. And I logged in, and we were running at, like, 4 frames a second. It was bad. And then I came down here, trying to figure out why were we running so slow. Okay, apparently these are now jail cells for the mobs. I kind of like that. I think that's what they're going to be from now on. They're going to be jail cells for the mobs. Anyways, so I come down here to check on the machine, wondering why I'm running so slow, and then I see these things over here. And I'm like, what in the crap are these? And I get closer, and then I see this weird, like, Tron light show looking thing all over the wall here. And then I come around and I see these blue things right there, and I'm like, ah, crap, he made Zycraft tanks. And coincidentally, this is the day after the BOO episode aired where he tore down his Zycraft tanks, and he thinks that it took care of their lag problem. So I ripped out all of the tanks. And all of a sudden I'm running at 30 frames a second again. Well, actually, I was running higher than 30 frames a second. This whole less than 30 frames a second thing is a new thing. It happened today. Anyway, so, yeah, I tore out the Great Machine, trying to figure out why we're running so slow. And it didn't help. Not one lick. The entire thing was taken down, turned off, everything was stopped. and I was still running at 24 frames per second. So it was not the great machine doing it. But I got 3 questions today, and I figure now is as good a time as any to answer those 3 questions. The first question is, how do I make the infinite Lapis machine? The second question is, how do I make the auto smelter? The third question is, what is up with all the filters? And I think I'm going to start by answering the easiest question, and that is the, what's up with all the filters? Because, yeah, why would I have all of these things here? It doesn't make sense, does it? I mean, all I would have to do is set it up so that once all the barrels are full, everything just gets spit out, right? Well, no. I have all of the filters because of this chest right here. This is my overflow chest. As we can see, we have a couple of ores in there. And that's because I don't have any barrels for ores whatsoever. Because I intend on using the auto smelter. Holy crap. The auto smelter that I will be building later on in the episode. Okay, so that means that I need everything that's unaccounted for to go into the chest. But I also need everything that I do account for, but the barrels fill up, to go into the destroyer here. For example, whee! Hey, there we go. Okay. Cobblestone. Dirt. Not as noticeable as it was this morning, but iron. This barrel was completely full of iron. I'm very slowly transforming it into refined iron, because, that's useful. There's a couple of other things that are full. The clay blocks are getting full. There was a bunch of them, wasn't there? Yeah. We have a significant amount of jungle logs and spruce logs. They're getting to the point where they're about to overflow. So how do I deal with all of these things that are overflowing without them going into the overflow chest and causing problems? Well, that's simple. That's to actually make the filters the shorter path. Okay, so because of, that's a restricted tube, that's a restricted tube, that's a restricted tube, and that's a restricted tube. Now, restricted tubes in Red Power act like 5,000 pipe gap, okay? And since everything in Red Power tubes goes to the closest valid destination, this works. Because, say, we've got these tin bars coming down. We got tin bars, we got a tungsten piece. They come down here. Woo! Okay. And I don't know exactly how much it is between where they came from and here, but let's say here is 50 pipes. Okay. So, right now, if I put a chest right here, everything that comes down this pipe will go into this chest. Alrighty. We come here, that adds 5,000, so that's 5,050 blocks. And then up to its destination barrel that it's going to right now, let's add another 50 pipes. So that's 5,100 pipes distance between the source and the destination. Okay? Now, say the barrel's filling up. Well, what's its next valid destination after the barrel is completely full? Well, we're to here. It can't go that way because there's no valid destination in the barrel. So this back pipe right there doesn't count anymore. Well, then we've got this one, which adds another 5,000, and then this one, which adds another 5,000. But further up here, we have another restrictive tube, which adds another 5,000. So that would be, what? Oh, 1,500, wait, no, 15,100 pipes from source to destination up there. But this one only has one restrictive pipe and nothing else. Just a couple of pipes from here to here, like 9. I'm not counting, I don't feel like counting. So that's only 1,000, or 10,000, 10,000? Yeah, 15,000. So that's 10,109 pipes. So this is the shorter path. Whew. Okay, so that's a tough one. Well, so if this is a shorter path, how do I deal with things that I want to actually keep? Like the things that are unaccounted for? Well, that's where the filters come in. Each of these filters has items of each type that I have already accounted for but want to destroy. So we got a bunch of mob drops from Enderman. Actually, that doesn't even need to be there. I'm using those things way faster than I can gather them. But from witches, zombie pigmen, angry zombies, slime balls, or slimes, that kind of thing. So all of these things I've already accounted for. And for the record, I don't actually need a stack. That's something else that I was thinking was a problem, but isn't a problem. So ignore the stacks and just think of them as like this, with one each. Now, oddly enough, this actually works. I didn't expect this to work, but the damage doesn't seem to be taken into account when you're using the redstone, or the red power filters. Except lag seems to be a problem. But that, yeah, here, this chain helmet here, even though it's enchanted and it's got damage on it, it will take all the chain helmets and push it through the filter. Yes, I know I could actually use the chain mail for something, but I'm not worried about it right now, and I have an infinite source of zombies that I can get more out of when I do want to worry about it. So let's just ignore that as well. So then we got other stuff. So we got the marble. Okay, yeah, that was another one. Marble was filled up completely. Dirt. Raw pork chop, which I actually don't want to keep. So when I get raw pork chop, I just want that to go into the trash. Iron for when it overflows. Eggs, because we already have another barrel completely full of eggs that we're never going to use. Spruce wood, jungle wood. And I don't know why these steel are in there. They don't actually have to be in there because none of the mobs drop steel stuff. That actually came out of a chest. But anyways, so that's why the filters are here. It's to take everything that I know I want to trash and chuck them in here. So everything else that I don't have a space for in the barrels and I don't have accounted for in here, that goes into the longest set of pipes, the 15,000 set of pipes, and up into that chest up there, which is the overflow chest. So that way I can go, okay, let's check the overflow chest every now and then. Okay, these water shards, what do I want to do with them? Do I want to create a barrel for them, or do I want to send them into the trash? Well, we keep the shards somewhere else, literally in a building like 400 blocks that way. So the shards can stay here. These ores, well, we got to take into account those things, so that's what we'll do next. Helium cells, helium coolant cells, or 180k helium coolant cells. Well, these are actually things that Space threw into his inventory. Or Space threw into the chest to clear out his inventory, so we just get random stuff every now and then. A couple of things are left over from before where I just didn't clean them out, like this chain chest plate and these chain leggings. They would actually be destroyed, but I didn't throw them in there yet. Or they came from before I put that filter in. Empty cells aren't accounted for because we shouldn't actually have empty cells running through the system. That is actually taken care of in this absolutely fascinating machine that Space set up. that will take all of the cells that come out of the centrifuges here, which aren't actually in use because I tore down the redstone source, which I'll throw back up later on in the episode too. But all of them come out of there, go into the liquid transposer, and they go out liquid tesseracts into iron tanks that space has outside, because we don't play with Zycraft tanks anymore. Which I do wonder if, like, you see how the fabricator is animated. It's got the blue swirlies that move around. It looks really cool, but I'm wondering if that's helping cause performance issues. Probably not enough to actually be the problem, because we had a bunch of them over here. We had like, 5, 6 of them over here, something like that. And I tore them all away, and I'm still having frames per second issue. So, I don't think that's the problem. Oh, and just to let you guys know, this wire goes down to a bunch of water mills down in the basement, which provide some power to the matter fab. And then this wire actually goes upstairs to a bunch of solar panels. That way, I have two technically dedicated power sources for the matter fab that aren't associated with the main power line coming from all of my other sources of power. That way I don't completely drain my other sources of power and cause other problems, which now I don't have to worry about, and that's cool. But I have mobs on the other side of the wall, but screw you! Shut up over there! Like the neighbors or something. Okay, so, next step. Let's make the auto smelter, since the auto smelter is relatively easy to make. And by relatively easy, I actually mean relatively easy. Okay, so, what we have right here, to make this properly, you actually have to understand what I explained earlier on about these constricted tubes and the filters and the tubes prioritizing the closest valid destination. Okay, so with that in mind, we can put a filter in pretty much anywhere into the system to separate out all of the ores. And conveniently enough, I have this chest over here of all the crap that I tore out of the floor, with all of the ores that we have to take into account. The lead, the iron, the silver, tin, copper, gold, that kind of thing. Which we will start with in a second, but, well, actually, let's do that right now. Let's do the filter with all of the ores. Now, we have to decide where we want to put the filter. Now, considering where I'm going to build this thing, right up against this wall here, because I'm trying to make everything as compact as possible to help, well, while I do know that it's not the cause of my performance issues, I don't want to cause any more performance issues. So the more compact I keep things, the less time there are random entities in tubes, and there's less performance hit. So, I'm going to build the auto smelter right here up against the wall. Since it's a relatively small thing, I can get away with it. And since we know that the ores go into that chest up there, we can put the filter, like, right here, and that's all we need. So, I'm trying to picture this in my head to know exactly where to put this. I might have to replace or rebuild this a couple of times to get it right. But I'm going to try putting it there, and that's pointed in the wrong direction. Okay, so let's get out our screwdriver that's almost about to break. Where is my screwdriver? Maybe it already broke. Where is my screwdriver? I didn't think it broke. Am I just missing it? Am I being stupid? Oh, there it is. It's in the wrong bag. Okay. Boop. Nope. Other way. Okay, so, yes. As before, big hole is the input, little hole is the output. I have no idea what those liquid voids are for. Oh, I bet you I know what those liquid voids are for. That's for when the tank gets completely full. The liquid void destroys the liquids. That's actually a really, really good idea. I like that idea. Anyways, so let us throw our ores in the filter. Now, the only things that can go through this filter now are the ores. So we're good there. And then we can throw them directly into a macerator, if we so choose. Or what's actually smarter is we throw them into a hopper. Because while if you have a quarry going, it's only outputting one ore at a time. Because you only go through patches of copper or patches of tin. You don't go through like copper, tin, copper, tin. You don't go back and forth. But you can come across situations where it's like copper, 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 tin, tin, tin. So you still need to have a little bit of a buffer, and that filter is not going to do it for you. Because the filter will qualify the macerator as an invalid destination, and everything's just going to get forwarded onto the chest. So we do need a little bit of a buffer, and that little bit of a buffer comes from the hoppers. Now, I like these hoppers. They don't work quite as nicely as the hoppers in... Yeah, this will work. Okay. They don't work quite as nicely as the hoppers in, 1.6? 1.5 or something like that? But I do like these hoppers. Okay, so now what's going to happen is any of the ores that come through the system will go up here, into the filter, into the hopper, where they will gather until they get dropped into the macerator, which happens automatically. We don't have to put power to the hopper or anything like that, so it does that automatically for us. And then the macerator will macerate them and put them into the output slot. Now the output slot is the front of the macerator. Right? No, the front. Yes. Yes, no, maybe, I don't know. It's either the front or the right side. Well, if you're facing it, it's the right side. But I do know that the front works, so let's go with that. Now, we could use a transposer, but then we would have to set up a timer, and it would have to be a fast timer, and I'd rather not do that because timers cause performance issues. Not frames per second issue, but performance issues on the server, and I'd rather avoid that. So, that's when we go with the wooden tubes, and the... Let's see if I can pronounce this again. Autarkic gate. That's a hell of a word. Is that like a real word? Autarkic? Or autarkic? I might have to Google that at some point. Anyways, so, wooden pipe, autarkic gate, and then we set this to items in inventory. Okay, so these gates are actually smart enough to determine if there are items in the internal inventory, basically right here. So if there are items in the inventory, this thing will send an energy pulsar, which will pulse the energy. Or we could set it up as a redstone signal if we wanted a separate type of thing, I guess. If we wanted to send a redstone signal somewhere else. But we don't want to do that. We want to send the energy pulsar, which will pull things out of the macerator and put them into another hopper. For the same exact reason that we would put the items into the hopper here. We can get more items being pushed out of the macerator into the hopper than the furnace can cook. Now, I can definitely see why I put this one too low, and that's because the furnace will be touching here. Well, that means a lot of things will come up and then go up into the furnace, which I'd rather not deal with. So that's when we get the covers and put them directly on the pipe. So now it qualifies as the same block as the pipe is in. So now we can put the electric furnace here. Yay! And now the pipe's not going into the electric furnace. So now we have coming from the hopper into the macerator, into another hopper, into the electric furnace to be cooked, and then, once again, just like the macerator, to be outputted into something in the same exact way with the items in inventory and a pulser. And then all we have to do is put it into a relay. And the relays are things that are designed for exactly this purpose, to take things from something like Buildcraft pipes and put them into tubes. Now this works because the relay just qualifies as a chest. So the relay will actually take input from any side and then output it through its small hole, just like normal. So anything that goes into this relay from any side will get put into the sorting system. So it's like how these are set up here. So we have the item tesseract here. Well, the item tesseract will output items from any side into any valid chest. Well, relays qualify as any valid chest. And since I have two of them on each side of the tesseract will actually output things into both relays. Because, as we can see here, the tubes don't connect to outgoing tesseracts. Or I guess incoming tesseracts, huh? I don't know. This one is receiving only. So the tubes won't connect to a receiving only tesseract. So yes, that can be a problem. So now we have all of this. Now we need power, of course. And I don't have any upgrades, so I'm just going to use low voltage power, which conveniently enough, there's a low voltage transformer right here powering something upstairs. I don't know what. I don't remember what, but something's upstairs is being powered by the low voltage power. So we'll just take the cables, which we have a buttload of, run them across the ceiling. And I know it can look bad that there's just random wires running across the ceiling, but you know what? That's what this entire area is for. It's for the pipes. It's for the wires. It is the in-between floors. That is a floor and that is a ceiling. So this is where the wires are supposed to go, so we can make everything else look pretty. And then basically I'm just running the wires right there, and since it's low voltage wiring, I don't have to worry about anything blowing up. But since it's power coming from 4 MFSUs being transformed into, what is that, 128 EU per tick, right there, packets, but a bunch of packets per tick, and then into 64 EU per tick packets, but a whole bunch more packets per tick into the glass fiber cable, we can actually throw the upgrades in, boink, and actually not have to worry about running out of power. But I think it went this way. I think there was, 7 in here and 6 in here. I'm pretty sure 6 is actually as fast as the electric furnace can go with the kind of power that I'm outputting, but I haven't tested recently. But it's fast enough for my purposes, and it doesn't run out of power, so it's good enough for me. Now, that's something you guys would have to think of if you're building this machine. You have to make sure you can input enough power to get both machines running simultaneously fast enough to keep up with whatever you're inputting. Now, we're running a quarry, and that quarry is running off of all of those electric engines over there, so our quarry's pretty damn fast, so our machines have to go pretty damn fast. Whew. Oh, this is long and drawn out, isn't it? Alrighty, so we have power, we have our upgrades. We conveniently enough have relays that we can throw things into, so let's get our ores that went through the quarry while I didn't have that set up. And then we throw these in and watch them go. And they go up into the filter, exactly like it's supposed to do. They go into the hopper. Nope. Into the macerator where they get made. And then the dust get into that hopper. Then into the electric furnace, which actually seems to be going pretty damn quick, into this relay where the bars go back into that pipe. And then they actually end up going back towards the sorting pipe. Whew, that's confusing. I hope everybody understood that. You thought it was confusing to say? Imagine how confusing it was to build. Oy. So yeah, so that's the auto smelter. It's surprisingly simplistic compared to the Macer Melter 9000 that we made on the old server with, like, what? Lines of macerators and lines of electric furnaces? Well, thanks to these these guys, the those gates. Thanks to those gates and these relays and the filters that I now actually know how they work, something that big was simplified into 2 machines. Very nice. Next thing. The next thing we're going to do is actually put redstone back into the centrifuges over here. Because that's what these run off. The industrial centrifuges run off of the redstone, which turn into the things that we empty out over there, and nickel dust. So if we want to keep these things running, we need to produce redstone. Now I think I'm going to move this just to get a little bit more space, which right now that's not too terribly much of a problem. Boop, 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 boop. Why is that one shorter? One would think that here to here would be actually... You know what? I'm not even going to ask. I'm not even going to guess. Alright, so now we have a little bit of space. So we need to run the redstone into here. And it will go into the first valid destination. So if we're inputting redstone here, it'll go into this one first. And then once that one's full, it'll go here. And then once that one's full, here. And so on and so forth. Until it actually fills up the entire system and actually goes back into this main tube, which is going to be the input tube for all of the stuff that I put into the sorting system. Nice, simple, compact. I can just build out from the tube and be done with it. So that is a simple task of getting more pneumatic tubes. And then, can we run them down? No, we cannot run them directly down, so I'm going to avoid that. Let's run it one more over, and then out, yeah, like that. So that way I have more room to work on the next thing that I'm going to show you. And then from here, we need, obviously, the input of the redstone. Well, I have prepared before, down here, way down in the basement, over here, where the bottom of the mob dropper that holds the witches and the zombie pigmen are. So out of this tube, or down this tube, will be going things like sugar, sticks, gold nuggets, and the redstone. Well, I've put this filter here, which should have a piece of redstone in it, but doesn't. I shall have to fix that. It's a long way back up. I should probably put a direct hole in or something. Okay, redstone, redstone, redstone. Do I have something here? No. Where did my spare redstone go? Ah, well. That's another thing I have to worry about is my redstone, because that barrel was completely full. Which is another reason why I have those filters, because redstone is taken care of in one of these filters. I don't remember where. Yeah, right there. So redstone, once it fills up and can't go anywhere else, it will go out here. Down. I get lost in my own building. Maybe I should work on that. Okay, so down here at the source of the redstone with an extra piece of redstone to go through the filter, or to go into the filter. So now the only thing that comes through this filter into this tesseract is redstone. And I've created a whole new frequency for it. It is Perno redstone. So now all I have to do is set up a receiving side over here and attach it to this tube right there, and that will give us only redstone. So we need our item tesseract, we need another relay. Put the relay down, put the item tesseract down, which this works. I didn't know this worked. I thought you had to have a pipe in between, but this works. And then we just set this to chrono redstone. Receive only. I don't know if you actually have to do these, but I do them anyways, just because I want to make sure that I want to know that it's working. Alright, so now redstone will come out through this relay, go through these pipes, and into the centrifuges first. And let us turn on the system. And this should be relatively quick because that tesseract is relatively close. And we are getting nothing as of yet. Come on. Are you doing anything? Hang on, is anything coming out? Oh, well, this would notice even slower because it's really far away from the tesseract. Any redstone? Any redstone at all? Nothing. Did I do something wrong? This one's set, right? Yes, the frequency is set. This is turned off. It is set to receive only, so that's exactly what I want. Oh, but there's redstone coming down here. See, something's wrong. Something is wrong. So let's head down into the sub-basement. And we can see that the redstone is just completely bypassing, and that's really loud and annoying. Let's turn that down. Okay, so we have this filter here. This filter is pointing the wrong way. Well, that's our problem. You're going the wrong way. Okay, better. So now any redstone that comes down here goes into the filter and into the item tesseract, which is set up. Okay, so good. Back up. Which, this sounds weird now, quiet. So let's fix that. 5. Okay, so. Yeah, yes, we have redstone coming this way, but that's because these centrifuges are still the closest destination because of that constriction pipe there. So it would work either way, I guess, technically, but this way, if we do it this way, it's easier. So now we got redstone coming out here, and the only thing that comes out of here is redstone. So the only thing we should see on this pipe is redstone. Whew. I should probably have a constriction tube here as well, so it's extremely unlikely that anything else will come through these pipes, because we only want redstone to come through these pipes right now. But I'll worry about that later. So all the redstone is going in here, and we're filling up this industrial centrifuge. Now these industrial centrifuges actually go slow enough that all of the redstone will actually go through here and fill up all of the industrial centrifuges before we need more. In fact, when they were split up between all of my machines, we still produced enough redstone to overflow the system. Okay, so from here, we can make our machine. And the question is, how do we want to do this? Our choices are, we can set up those things to have priority. And to do that would be a little bit difficult, a little bit annoying. I'd probably just tear those out, it'd be easier. Or we could set it up so that we can distribute them evenly. So for every 2, 1 goes off that way and 1 goes off towards our machine. And the zombies are annoying on the other side of the wall. Anyways, we can do that. Let's do that. But to do that, we need 2 filters. No, that's relays. We need 2 filters. And I could use 2 things of redstone just to make sure that that's the only thing going through these filters, because that's how I work. 1, 2. Whee! Alright, so let's very quickly pop that pipe, put a filter there, and then put some redstone in it. Okay, so now everything's going into the relay, through the filter, into the tube system. Now, why are we doing that? Well, because of the closest valid destination thing, again, that comes from the tubes. If I put another filter here, which, of course, we can't see. There we go. Okay. So now, there are 2 valid destinations. 2 valid closest destinations after the relay. And we can see we're already spitting things out. This filter is 1 pipe away from that filter. This filter is 1 pipe away from that filter. Or, no. This filter is 1 pipe away from the relay. This filter is 1 pipe away from the relay. So they're both valid destinations. So what happens is every other piece of redstone goes into this filter. So now we have equal distribution. So now we have half of the redstone going off in that direction, half of the redstone going off in this direction, where we can play with it. And if we just put a tube right there, all of a sudden that filter qualifies as not attached to a valid destination, and all of the redstone will go off that way. So now we can work with our machine. The first thing we need to do is figure out how to make said machine. Alright, so we're making lapis. Right? We're making lapis. So let's start with our lapis. Yeah, let's start with a little bit of lapis. And we look at our R function to see how we can make lapis. Okay, so a minium stone, a piece of charcoal, and a lapis lazuli ore. 7 lapis lazuli ores equal 7 lapis. Well, that's ridiculously inefficient. If we have 7 lapis lazuli ore, let's throw them in a macerator and get 12 each. No. Same with the philosopher's stone, which I don't think you can actually make yet. No. But this is the one that we care about. Okay, so we have 1 lapis lazuli, and we get 2 outputted. Okay, so we're doubling our lapis selection, but we need redstone to do it. Well, conveniently, we have an infinite supply of redstone in the wall over there. And my frames per second still haven't dropped below the 28 that they're running at. Anyways. So all we need is 4 redstone, 1 piece of lapis, and the tome of the alkahest. Whatever. Which the tome is surprisingly like the minium stone, except the minium stone wears out, whereas the tome does not. And I love it for it. And we have 2 of them here for this exact reason. So let's put a chest down. Or no, let's get 2 chests, our lapis, our tomb. we have some redstone to play with, and we need a fabricator. And I'm going to do this how-to style, and then I'll explain why I do it this way, just because it's easier to explain the why that way. Alright, so now we have a chest, and all the redstone is now coming into said chest. We put down another chest here, which we can attach the fabricator to. There we go. Sometimes I have lag and blocks end up invisible. So we look inside of our fabricator, we set it up just like we have the recipe, and this is it sets the item. You don't actually lose an item in the fabricator, it just sets that lapis is supposed to go here. The book is supposed to go there, and the redstone is supposed to go here. Okay, and now it knows that we have 2 lapis lazuli. Alright, so we have plenty of redstone. Let's throw the book in here, and then we'll throw the lapis in here. And we can see that it's made 4 lapis, and that accounts. Well, it's actually kind of confused. What it's doing is actually pretty sweet. It's keeping the internal inventory and prioritizing the internal inventory. So as long as we get 4 redstone in this chest here, it will add 1 more lapis to the internal inventory. Because it will take 1 lapis from the internal inventory, use it in this recipe, and then put the 2 lapis outputted into the internal inventory, like it just did. Actually, it seems to have done it a lot. And we need to output this lapis into something, useful. Whee! And then from there, we go back into here, go 1 more wooden tube, 1 more gate, and we have plenty of tubes. Whee! We also need a relay, because that's how these things work. Relay! Alright, so, no, not there. Into the filter, and then we will put our relay down. I'm going to put the relay down before I put it down the, or put on the gate, because then I can set up the system to do its magical thing before we start outputting lapis all over the floor. Whew. So from here, we have to do the equal valid destination trick again, just like we did over here. And from there, we need another tube, and then we need 2 more filters. Lots of filters. I guess transposers could work in this situation. Oh, but no, they can't. Not for this purpose. Alright, so we have a filter there, and then this filter can actually point in the other direction. It can go there, because this filter is going to paint the outputted lapis. It's going to paint it. Let's paint it yellow. Where is yellow? The colorblind kid is playing with colors again. There we go. Okay. So it will paint the outputted lapis yellow. And let's grab a little bit of lapis. Just because I like setting my filters. I'm weird that way. I don't know why I like setting my filters, but I like setting my filters. So we have our outputted lapis on this side getting painted, and that is because we don't want the lapis to come back around. Which, you know what, isn't a problem since we're playing with redstone. So screw the painting. You don't have to paint your lapis. It doesn't matter. Ignore that. And we don't actually have to paint anything with this particular setup. So, like, if I was pulling redstone from over here, like if redstone was coming out of this one and going off in this direction, and then connecting up over here, like if I had a filter here and going off in that direction. And I wanted to split it off so that we have half of the redstone going off that way and half the redstone going off that way. I would have to set this filter up to paint the redstone so it doesn't come back through the filter that would be here, which would be difficult with that particular setup. I would have to add another pipe. Ooh, that's a problem. Where are they going? Where are you going? What the crap? Are you coming back? Yeah, you're coming back. Why did you bounce up there? What qualified as a valid destination up there? And yeah, all of it's coming back, so... That's strange. Anyways. Maybe I should put a constriction tube up there, just so it doesn't do that again. I don't know. But in this setup, we don't have to worry about painting, so ignore the fact that I'm painting the lapis. Now, why do I have the equal setup here? Well, that is for this reason. So we have one piece of lapis in this chest here, no lapis in this chest here, and a bunch of lapis in here. And that's what this gate is supposed to help with. So we set the gate to do its standard thing, where we have items in inventory, we send a pulse, and then the lapis gets sent through the system. So once this thing's done pulling out the lapis, which we're going to have to pick up off the floor. Okay, so it's done pulling out the lapis completely. All we have to do is wait until we get 2 more redstone, which shouldn't be too terribly long. Hang on, I'll pick up the lapis while I'm waiting. Boop, and a boop. So, I mean, hell, we had 23 freaking lapis show up. Hey, I got 6 redstone in my inventory. So let's throw the 6 redstone up here. Now, if this works, I should get 2 sets of lapis. Well, that worked. But now we have 4 redstone in here. Why do we have 4 redstone in here now? And 5. Why is it not doing it anymore? Well, that's because there's no lapis in this inventory anymore. And there's no lapis in this chest anymore. We're out of lapis. So we can't use our magical trick without the lapis to start said magical trick. So that's why we have to split things into 2. So half of the lapis goes back into the sorting system and half the lapis goes into that chest. And then we can just throw the pneumatic tubes in place. Yeah, that'll work fine. And then throw that pneumatic tube in place. Now, if we throw some lapis in said chest, it will do its thing. And boop, it will send some lapis off in this direction back into said chest to refill the chest. And then some of it down. As we can see, it's still painted because I didn't actually change that. Off into the sorting system to go into its barrel. So now we have this cute little setup that will take all of our lapis, double it, and send half of it that way, half of it this way, to be doubled again. And all we have to do to get this to work now is to input redstone. And that's thanks to this book not taking damage. I love that. I want a Philosopher's Stone because somehow I don't think the Philosopher's Stone takes damage either, but since there's no way to craft one, I'm stuck with the Minium Stones, which we play with elsewhere in another kind of magical setup thing. I could probably make this even more compact if I wanted to. I like it right here. Okay, so now let's try going over this one more time just to make sure that everybody understands what's happening. So through this particular tesseract, we are only getting redstone. The only thing that will ever come through this tesseract is redstone. So the redstone goes into the relay, pushes through these pipes, and gets split in two because of the equal valid destination. One pipe away, one pipe away. They both qualify as valid, so the pipes are smart enough to have what's going through the pipes. Half of it goes that way, half of it goes that way. So then the half of the redstone that we're playing with goes down this tube into this chest where it collects up until it gets to 4, where the fabricator does its thing, and then outputs 2 lapis out this pipe here into this relay, which turns it into tubes again, to do the equal valid destination trick again, to send our now extra lapis off in this direction, and then a refueling lapis off in this direction to go down this pipe into this chest where only lapis will sit. Whew. That is complicated. So, now that I think about this, I don't think this chest will ever get full. I don't think it will. Because we're pulling 1 lapis out to be turned into 2, and then 1 goes off in that direction and 1 goes off in this direction. So, I think at most I will only ever have 27 lapis in this chest. No. I want to leave you 3. There we go. Let's leave 3 in there just in case. So, yes, because we're not pulling in redstone that fast, we can leave just 3 lapis in here, which will just be a buffer for while the other 2 lapis are in this particular tube coming back to this chest. Whew. This is complicated. This is making my brain hurt. Oy. But over here, we have the redstone going up through here into the centrifuges. And then once the centrifuges are full, which they're obviously not yet, they will go out here, down this pipe. Limbo under that. Down here. And then, if the barrel has space in it, it will go up there into the sorting system. If the barrel does not have space for it, it will go through this filter where it will get destroyed. Yep. That's annoying. Holy crap. That's complicated as hell. But yes, now we have. That is how you make an infinite lapis system. Thanks again, EE. You are very slowly getting to the point where I have my infinite storage room again. We just gonna have to work on getting more infinite things. I need to figure out how to make infinite minium stones, but those minium shards, they only show up if a player destroys the mob, not a turtle. The turtle kills the mob, we don't get the minium shards. Player kills the mob, then we get the minium shards. So I don't know how we can get the minium shards. That was probably intentionally encoded into EE3 for the exact reason that I'm trying to do is, yeah, so you can't make infinite systems like that. Whew. Okay, so I think that was a pretty good episode. That was a complicated episode and probably a long one. I have no idea until I edit it up. But hey, we got, let's see, we explained what the hell the filters do. We got a automatic macerating and smelting system to take all the stuff from our quarry and sort it out. Then we have a system to get me infinite lapis, which is great because IC2 uses a lot of lapis. So, let us turn on our quarry, which we have conveniently placed in another world, which I guess you guys will have to wait until the next episode to learn about that, which I might actually be recording next. Yeah, I got a little bit of time. So let us turn on our Buildcraft power system. So we have, let's see, how many was that? I believe that was a line of 13, that was a line of 12, and that was a line of 11. So 12 times 3, 36. So we have 36 electric engines outputting 2 megajoules per tick each into these things, the redstone energy conduits. I always forget what they're called. And then into these tesseracts, which one is space. One is Space's tesseract, and one is my tesseract. And I think we're just trading back and forth because, well, I can destroy his, he can destroy mine. Whatever. We don't need both of them anymore, but I left them there. Yeah, but that's going into our quarry, which we already have dirt coming out, which its barrel's already full, and so they're getting destroyed instantly. Crystals, which are going up into their barrel, all mixed in with all the crap that we have already put in here, and my frames per second hasn't even budged. It is the same as it's been. Okay, that dropped to 20, but yeah, so all of these items moving through the pipes don't seem to affect the frames per second as much as one would think. I mean, look how many are going through at once. I mean, to the point where they're not even displaying properly. Some of them are disappearing. They're blinking, for Christ's sakes. But, yeah, my frames per second hasn't dropped. Well, at least it's good to know that the big machine isn't causing my problems. So I can rebuild my big machine. And for the record, Space, that's why the big machine was destroyed. It was a trial and error kind of thing. I'll rebuild it, I swear. Though most of it has been rebuilt already. I just have to rebuild my gold bars to diamond thing. Which, again, is going to be in another episode. Alright, so I am off for today. We're up over an hour recording, and that probably means we're up over an hour video. So I need to stop now before it gets more ridiculous. So I am going to say very quickly, as always, what the hell do I say? Oh, I was trying to be fast and my brain went... Alright, as always, keep playing the game and have fun.